what I thought I'd do is, I'll just take a few minutes, obviously talk a little bit about the session we had. We have, as you probably are all well aware, we've got elections this year in Virginia, which could impact a lot of things, and some specific to VAREI, and then also talk about some upcoming issues as well. The good news is, first and foremost, our job is to protect and make sure that the General Assembly doesn't do anything detrimental to the industry. This year we had a very short, we had in even or in odd years, we have what are called our short sessions. They're 45-day sessions, 6 weeks, very, very quick. The wrinkle we had this year was 100% virtual, which, lobbying is hard enough and getting your issues heard. It's really hard when you can't get in front of people. Everything is a phone call, a text. We would go out some to dinner, outside of session, but very, very hard to have a lot of influence and get in front of legislators. The good news for VAREI is there weren't any really big issues for us to jump in front of, and it needed really strict time and attention. Legislators were, because of the virtual session, legislators were limited in the bills they could file. Senators got 7, House members got 12. So they really focused on the key issues they really cared about. And there weren't as many as what we call brochure bills that you see in an election year, where you have big hot button issues that you're going to run on in your campaign. Just a couple of issues that came up. I sent a report over to Scooter at the end of session. A couple of things that passed this year just of interest to VAREI, I think. Virginia Residential Property Disclosure Act, they added the recommendation as part of a buyer's due diligence that they receive that they acquire a mold assessment for properties. Just wanted to make folks aware of that, as I know there's some folks that do that type of testing. It could be a bigger interest in that going forward. And then the other thing that did pass was some legislation from our Joint Commission on Coastal Flooding. This particular big issue, obviously down in Hampton Roads, but that required sellers who are aware of repetitive loss flooding issues, basically, in their homes, that they disclose that when selling that. Those are bills that passed without much controversy at all, but are now part of the code. And just wanted to at least make you guys aware of that. But as mentioned before, we do have elections this year. We've got a governor's race that is neck and neck right now. There's a lot of money going into it, millions of dollars. Virginia has no limits on campaign contributions. The latest poll I saw out, I just saw the other day, had it at 49-49, and then with a third party candidate getting 2%. It is incredibly close. It's really anybody's game. Republicans have lost every statewide election for the last 12 years. Bob McDonnell, former Governor McDonnell, was the last Republican to win statewide, and then the AG and lieutenant governor that year. I would say until things change, Republicans are the underdogs. But I think this year the race is as close as anyone has seen it. And coupled with that, you have House races as well. Democrats control our House 55-45, and those 100 seats. Most people, even Democrats, will tell you they probably lose 3 to 4 seats this year. There's 2 rural seats that Democrats currently hold, one in the Blacksburg-Radford area, one down in Emporia, that are very much in play. And then Republicans are really targeting the suburbs, the Richmond suburbs, and then the Virginia Beach suburbs, and then even the Fredericksburg-Stafford area as well. I think most people believe Republicans will pick up some seats. Republicans are confident they can take back the House, and that they can even take back the House without winning the governor's race. So a lot of stuff way up in the air right now. And then the last thing I'll move on to here before I take questions, and part of me is somewhat glad of this virtual environment, because I don't want anybody to throw anything at me, as we think that limited liability could be back this year. Those of you who've been around a while know that back in 2018, Senator Surabel from Fairfax County put in a bill that would prevent home inspectors specifically from putting limited liability in their contracts. And he stated that this was needed because he had he's a lawyer, and he had a client who had a termite inspection. Turns out the termite inspection said there were no termites, there were termites. And through helping this client, he reviewed their agreement. They couldn't sue for any more than the cost of the inspection. Obviously, those of you who are around remember we said, look, the termite inspection is not a home inspection. That didn't matter to him. He went full bore trying to get limited liability taken out. We had a huge fight in front of our Senate General Laws Committee, ended up defeating that bill that year. And then he requested that DPOR do a review of this issue, which they did. Many of you participated in that. And I've actually gone back now and read through that report, given the conversation I had with him last weekend. And they're definitive that that's the wrong direction to go, which is going to be very helpful if he pursues this. The way this came about, I was actually with him last weekend just chatting and said, hey, is there anything we should be concerned about this year? And he said, yeah, I may pick up that limited liability issue again. I said, you got to be kidding me. We DPOR went through this. We've gone through this. I said, we put this issue to bed. And he said, no, we didn't. It's bad policy. And then he claimed that he had talked to some home inspectors in Fairfax County who said they have to limit what they put in inspection reports or the realtors won't hire them. And I said, look, Senator, I got to tell you, I said, you're going to be perceived as a bully if you pursue this. We hashed all these things out. DPOR did an exhaustive review. He said he didn't think the DPOR report was good enough. Go figure. But he, if nothing else, he is honest. We have pushed on him several times, even since, said, do not do this next year. This is not something you need to go after. And I even asked him, I said, has anyone complained to you about this? He said, no, I just think it's bad policy. And I said, okay, that should tell you something. When the complaints aren't out there, you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. So what my plan is, again, take this very seriously. I've already reached out to some of you. I think this is a good opportunity to do some education on that Senate General Laws Committee. There's plenty of people who are on there that weren't on there back in 2018. Do some Zoom meetings with some key senators on there to talk about this and just the industry as a whole. And then we've got some folks here in the Richmond area do some in-person meetings as well. So what my plan was to send an email around for Scooter or Alex to send out to the membership. Let me know if you're interested in joining one of those meetings, particularly with a legislator who's in your region of the state, to talk about this and make sure, take this very seriously. I'm going to continue to harp on Senator Surville about this. I think he will tell me if he's not going to do it. But until he tells me that, we're going to assume that he is, and we're going to be prepared. The thing that concerns me most about him is he's a very good senator. He's very diligent. He lobbies his own bills. So he doesn't just throw something out there and see what happens. He'll actually lobby members of his own caucus, of the Republican caucus, and try to get things through. So that will be sort of my goal here going into the end of this year, doing a lot of those meetings. Also, talking, as a measure, I hope it never gets to the House, but also talking to the chair of the House General Laws Committee. They have a Professions and Occupations subcommittee. That chair right now is Chris Hurst from Blacksburg. He's currently in the fight of his political life to keep his seat. Assuming he does, we'll talk with him. But if not, we'll go to the next person who will end up being the chair as well. But there's plenty of reasonable people on that committee too. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is the reason you hire us to find these things out. We're going to keep an eye on this and take it incredibly seriously. And our goal is to have nothing introduced. But if it is, we'll make sure that the legislators are well aware. And that, again, those of you who put that time and effort into the DPOR report 3 years ago, that's going to pay off, I think, because the report is very definitive. It's exhaustive. It gets into a lot of these issues. And I think will be very, very helpful to us. So I'll stop there, Alex. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Sure. Why don't we just take a couple minutes? If anybody has a question, go ahead.
I have a question, Mark.
Anybody else have a question related to home inspection issues, Scott?
I wanted Rob to just touch again on the thing about the mold that you mentioned earlier. So is something as far as mold testing something all of us as home inspectors need to bring into our portfolio?
No, I wanted you guys to be aware because it's one of the recommendations, as far as the Residential Property Disclosure Act, that if you're purchasing a property, a recommendation that you get a mold assessment. I just wanted to put it out there in case there are inspectors that offer that service that now that it's actually in there may be more requests for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Richard.
Yes, Rob, and I see Trish is still here too. We've run into a lot of situations where we've got listing agents telling their clients to reject any contracts where there's an inspection that's been requested. And it's gotten to the point now where the buyer's agents are just telling their clients not to put a request for an inspection in there. I hear you saying that they're going to add a mold inspection. Well, we've got people telling them not to do home inspections. I'm not sure who to talk to about this, but I just thought I'd bring it up and see what your thoughts were.
Yeah, no, and again, the mold inspection thing is a recommendation to the buyer as part of, or to the buyer as part of their due diligence process. No requirements or anything. It's just part of that, part of that due diligence process. And I've heard that too from from folks in the industry in this area about, competitive real estate market. It's a challenge in a lot of cases if folks want to get houses that are in super competitive areas. I just don't know. I mean, legislatively, kind of what you do to address that, if in a hot market, and particularly, I guess, Northern Virginia and Richmond are both really hot markets.
Yeah. Is it currently written so that a real estate agent needs to inform the buyer that a home inspection is recommended or good versus the current practice of trying to be competitive and ignoring them?
Trying to pull up here while we're online. I'm reading from the Residential Property Disclosure Act. Purchasers are advised to exercise whatever due diligence a particular purchaser deems necessary, including a home inspection, a mold assessment by a business that follows the guidelines from the EPA. So it's fairly open-ended. I mean, it looks like. That's not a legal analysis. That's just my initial read says it's, due diligence is a broad thing, but it does say including a home inspection.
Okay, thanks.
But wouldn't it be against the real estate agent's interest, and even I'm not sure what the law is about it, but aren't they supposed to be looking out for the client and having a home inspection and asking them to waive that just to get the sale of the house? Wouldn't that be construed as working against the client's interest?
Again, not speaking for the realtors, I think what they would probably say is, they would advise people to obtain a home inspection, but they say that may, in a competitive market, that could make it challenging to get the house because there's so many people that are willing to waive that.